Louis sports right now. You can start off with because there's a big thing going on with the Rams. There's a lot of big things going on with Mizzou. You could go with this DraftKings thing. Like the show almost wrote itself. I just had to read the stories a little bit. But you got to start with the Cardinals in the playoffs. And a big game tonight to see who plays the Cardinals with the Cubs. Arrieta going for the Cubs against Garrett Cole and the Pirates. And that really is going to come down to who scores first in that game. Because compared to the Cubs, the Pirates have a great bullpen. And that's all you need in a game like this. That's going to be close because unless Bryant hits you a big home run, but he's a big strikeout threat, or something happens. Pedro Alvarez for the Pirates, it wasn't even in the lineup. They had Sean Rodriguez at first base just for the better defense because Pedro Alvarez just ain't really that good at defense. But I know I got the Rams hat on, I got the Mizzou shirt on, but you got to talk Cardinals baseball. And it's a real big difficulty to know what's going to go on, to be happy or to be kind of worried. Because you don't know who's going to be in this lineup except for certain people. You got Yachty running around trying to play the splint on. Now, they said he was hitting today, he was catching today, and all that. And, of course, the Cardinals are going to say that, and that's just how they are. But how effective can he be? And it's kind of like with the CC Sabathia thing. Like, you're going to hear excuses, like he's the glue that holds the team together. He's the one that makes it go. And this is probably what you're going to hear for the Cardinals, that they need Yachty on this roster just for his experience and all that. But if you watch the last couple of weeks, with Tony Cruz in the lineup, the Cardinals' offense was actually better. And he was getting big hits. He's the one that won you that series with the Pirates. Now, you had Grand Slam from Jason Hayward in there too, but he's the one that got 2 big doubles and a home run in that series the division clinching series. And is it really that big of a deal to have your 8th place hitter in there? Does he really make that big of a deal to the pitching staff if he can't hit? And if he can't hit, you have to play him 8th, bat him 8th, and if he even gets on, then you're going to have to bunt. And then how fast is he? How quick is he? How can he? He can't run, and how are you going to bunt him over? So that's kind of what I don't understand why it's such a big deal at this point. So I think you have to put the best lineup out there. That you got to stop having the loyalty to all these players. I hope it stops with the playoff roster with John Jay. I mean, there's other guys that probably come too, because at a time when we had chances to win, we've had players on this team, as everybody wants to call them, scholarship players. I wonder if Michael Wacha is going to be one in this first series. That's why I'm wondering if Yachty's going to be one in this first series. But you really don't have anybody else to play that can back him up. You had Damian Easley up here a couple of times, and you didn't really trust him to where you actually played Travis Tartamanella, can't even say his name right, as he looks like he would be the backup catcher if Yachty's not on the roster. But it's nothing to be all that hurt about because of this pitching staff. And yeah, it did look a little worse in September as Wacha trying to find himself. But you see what happened when give these guys long rest, that it kind of hurts them in a way. And that's probably what happened with Wacha, with them trying to limit his innings. But Lackey, 178 in September. ERA, you can't complain about that. But then you land 476. Garcia with his highest month except for the one start he had in July, 331. Then Wacha 788. But is this extra time going to affect them in a bad way or in a good way? Is this time off this week that they basically had off, giving these guys the rest to come out and start firing? And I think that, honestly, Wacha is going to be one of the players that doesn't see much time in the division series. You don't need 4 starters, really, in the division series. And I think you know who your horses are in this team, and that's Lackey, Lynn, and Garcia. Now, if you're going to use Wacha, I would much rather see Lynn in the bullpen. But Mike Matheny already came out and said they're starting Lackey in game one, and then you automatically know, with the way he's pitched all season, that Garcia's going second. So it's really a fight for that third starter, and that's really all I think you need. And I think that it would bode well for you if you gave Waka even more time off and limit as much as he has to do. Maybe, like I said before, Carlos Arias to do with him is maybe throw him in the bullpen, have him pitch maybe once or twice in a series in an inning or so, and see what you can get out of him, or just don't use him at all. And that's not going to get him off the roster because you know how Matheny is, but it's because he's going to be on the roster. But I think it showed you in September that something's not right, and maybe he needed either a little more rest, or that maybe that stress fracture that you haven't heard about all year that happened last year is actually affecting him. Now, as I get back onto the lineup, hold on, I should go back to the lineup. But is it going to be hard for these pitchers to pitch well if the lineup's not scoring anything? And you got a lot of guys out. But it has been all season for you where this team has had the best ERA since the 1960s without any run support. And even Lynn, who gets the best run support in the world this year, wasn't getting run support. And you're kind of seeing all these guys come back healthy. And does that help the Cardinals in any way? Because of how they can't run. And they said Grichuk was throwing at 120 feet. I think sometimes you got to throw a lot farther. That definitely he's playing center field. So you might actually see him in right field and Hayward in center. And then you got to worry about where's Piscotty's head at that. There's a lot of things to worry about with this lineup that could also affect this pitching staff. And then you also got who everybody says is basically your pitching MVP every year, Yadi Molina. Is that going to affect this pitching staff? Because they let him call the game, as they say. They don't really have to shake him off. But I didn't see much shaking off of Tony Cruz in the last 2 weeks. And it looks like that every time either one of them are back behind the plate, they're looking over at Mike Matheny the whole time. Every pitcher looking at Mike Matheny for something, it seems like. So are they really even calling the game anyways? But Yachty also does move the infield and puts you in better situations to make the plays, definitely with the lackluster defense that this team has. I mean, Carpenter and Wong aren't the best defensively, and you know how shortchanged Johnny Peralta was, or is. Yet he seems to make every play that the ball rolls to him, and the Cardinals don't shift as much as these other teams, but it's little minor tweaks here and there that they say are usually made by Yachty that help this defense be better than it really is. Because I said it before, Wong and Carpenter were up there at 16, 17 errors this year. I mean, that's not defense that's going to get you a gold glove. I mean, I was looking at Ozzy's stats the other day, and when he was with San Diego, that's where he was. And then he came here and he had a couple years like that. Then he was down to 10 and 9 as a shortstop. And a guy that went after every play, so you know there had to be times where you thought he was going to make a bad throw and he threw it right on strike. But the lineup does have a lot of holes in it anyways. Definitely with Wong struggling all September. Where can you bat Hayward for him to be effective, to also use his speed? But he's not the big power threat that we once thought he was. I mean, only 13 home runs this year, 60 RBIs. But can you put him lower in the lineup if you have nothing else to go for you at the top of the lineup with Holiday being injured? Even though Piscotty did play and they said he looked well, do you really know where his head's at? And is he going to play first base? Grichuk playing in the outfield, wherever it is he going to be able to throw? Yachty playing catcher and batting him in the A spot. So I think it's intriguing that there's so many question marks on a 100-win team going against the two lower teams in their division, and you have a chance that you might lose this series because you honestly don't know who's going to play. And you don't know how effective they're going to be. I mean, Holiday did look pretty good in the Pirates series, a couple of big doubles. But he didn't run hard. He's going to have to run to get the fly balls. You've seen what they did at the end of the game by moving Borges out there and center, moving Piscotty to left, and you see what happened to Piscotty. But you see they had to do that early in the game because they didn't trust Holiday in the outfield running. Grichuk's throwing underhand to Hayward when he's playing in the outfield. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can't trust about this team, and they won 100 games. And that's with Lynn's record being 12-11. That's just crazy. I mean, Waka's 17-7, of course. But it just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And definitely when you weren't as healthy as you were going in that Pirates series and you went in there and got the division for them, and then you kind of look like what happened to you in the Braves series. You couldn't score one in 3 games because that's how depleted you were. But I mean, it is kind of nice to see guys get out there. Brandon Moss played okay. But to see what Greg Garcia can do, to see if he finally gets over Cosmo on this roster. Even though Cosmo does do a lot with the speed and the defense and blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't you rather have a guy that can run a little bit, can play some shortstop, and actually hit the ball a little bit? Cosmo was the first player, not the first player ever, but the first player in like 20 years to have over 100 at-bats and no extra base hits. I mean, you see what Garcia could do when he came in there and pitched. He had a big home run in one game, had a big double later in a game, and I think it was in the Red Series when the Pirates were running your heels and you were going into that Pirate Series. That he has a little bit of pop in his bat too. That's probably going to bode you well when you don't have Johnny Peralta out there in your lineup, and definitely when you switch your lineups around where you got the hitters hitting third, the pitchers hitting third, and then you have to pitch it to have a guy at the bottom of that lineup that can do something for you that's not just out there just to play defense, but can actually hit the ball. Because defense is going to be one of your biggest factors. And definitely with all the injuries you got, definitely in the outfield, but late in games, you're not going to have Peralta out there probably all 9 innings. And Piscotty's probably definitely not going to be at first. I don't know who they put at first. I guess Reynolds goes to first. And then Piscotty goes to the outfield if Piscotty's playing at first. Because that's how safe you have to be with this team right now. Because there's so many limitations. I mean, the limitations now we were talking about it, don't even count the limitation that it's been all year with the offense. I mean, your best hitter is your leadoff hitter. And he can't bat nowhere else to lead off. That's the problem. And your offense just doesn't run as good when he's not batting leadoff. Your 28 home run, 84 your best hit on your team, your MVP for the year, has to bat leadoff for this team to even have a chance. And it's just crazy to think about. And then you got to go down the list. Peralta struggled when he was batting third and cleanup. Do you really want to keep batting him in that spot? I mean, there's just so much to go through in the lineup. I mean, I'm not really worried about the bullpen. People want to talk about the pitching. I mean, if they go 5 innings, you have Seagrass, Maness, Rosenthal, Wainwright all down there in that bullpen to easily be used. And they're not going to be used every game in this series, but at least every other game, you would think that at least some combination of that would be used. That's your 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. So I only see that maybe it's fight between certain people like Lyons and Choate, Cishek and Broxton. But I just don't understand why more people aren't worried about this lineup, and you can text in 314-387-9323 and let me know your thoughts. But going into this series, your game times for Friday is 5:45. Your game time for Saturday is 4:37. And of course, them games will be at home. And this kind of some weird 4:37. I don't know where they get these game time. I guess they're giving time for the next game to get over, get a pregame show for the Cardinal game in because they switched so many stations. But just 4:37, 5:45 is a reasonable time for 4:37, and you know the game won't start to probably 4:45, and that's just how baseball is. They said the game starts at 7:05. It starts at 7:15 every time. You know TBS is going to want their guys to get out there and do their pregame show or the postgame show for the post-game for the show for the first game, and then the pregame for the Cardinal game. It just surprises me that the Cardinals aren't in prime time, definitely with New York being in LA, and they're not going to start them games almost 9 o'clock at night. And that means New Yorkers are going to be 10 o'clock at night and have to stay up to 1 a.m. just to watch the playoff games. You would think they would hold, even though that's kind of early for LA people, but it's kind of more of a reasonable time to put the Dodgers and Mets there to put the Cardinals and a central opponent was basically in the same time zone. But that's just how they roll. That's what all the people want is they want ratings. They want to make it to where the MLB just sells it off to every network. ESPN has wild card games. TBS, MLB networks involved in there. Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports are involved in there. So they're just selling all their games off just for ratings and the money. And I understand it. Make as much money as you can, but to make it harder on the fans to find the games, to put the games on in unreasonable times for people that live in New York that are trying to stay up and watch the Mets, but put the St. Louis game times where if you put that game later at 9 o'clock St. Louis time, most people do stay up to midnight because most people go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning or even 8 o'clock. There's some people that want to get to watch the whole game. But you never know. Some people might stay up and watch it and go to work 4 or 5 hours of sleep and not really worry about it because it's playoff baseball. But it's all about the ratings. 2 biggest markets. They're going to be in what they consider prime time. Cardinals game will get over about, you would say reasonably 7:45, 8 o'clock, and then you can go right in there 8:30 to the LA game on a Saturday. And of course, everybody's going to be there watching them, the late night baseball game. And there you go. There's the boost in your ratings. But I think that what they're worried about is the Pirates getting in there, and now you have 2 mid-market teams that's really not going to get to view the viewership that the number 1 and 2 markets are going to get you. Now, I think Chicago would be the 3rd market. So that'd be a little more intriguing if they were to make it before they made these game times. Then you would have kind of maybe seen a split in the times where one game was late night and then the next game was during the day. But I think that's what they're really worried about is 2 mid-market teams being in that division series and nobody watching except for them 2 people. But there are a lot of Cardinal fans. I mean, KMOX stretches to Memphis and Arkansas. There's a lot of stations that are flagship stations for the Cardinals all around the United States, at least in the more central to southern area. So there are a lot of people that are watching these Cardinal games anyways, but it's still not the 2 biggest cities in North America, so they're going to put that in what they think is going to give them the most money. Because even if New York's not watching, you still have LA watching, and all, I guess they would consider all of California. But just to have the 4:37 on a Saturday, that just doesn't make any sense. That's just how they roll. But hopefully, with this pitching, if they play the Pirates or the other Cubs, and you really got to hope our pitching tops up because Lariano and Happ, 2 left-handers, and the Cardinals can't seem to hit them left-handers too well, even though they've done pretty good against Lariano, not so good against Happ. And then I've already mentioned Hendricks, who doesn't get talked about for the Cubs. And then they also got some other guys that probably go Hendricks, Arrieta, and Lester in the first series. And, of course, Lester got us last time because he actually figured out how to pick off a little bit. And the Cardinals were taking such big leads, they might as well start walking the second. But still, three good pitchers that can shut this team out very easily, definitely if you're limited. I mean, and it's nice to know that you only see Cole one game, but half and Larry Arnold aren't bad pitchers at all, and you might even get A.J. Burnett in there too, who's pitched against well against the Cardinals. Now I think the next guy for Chicago is Jason Hamels, has had good seasons before. Not the best pitcher in the world. Maybe they go with Dan Herron against the Cardinals, who's pitched well in his 2 starts. Doesn't make any sense that Dan Herron shuts down the Cardinals. I think when he came in here, he had an 8-9 record the first time with like a 4.50 ERA. Came in here and shut us down. I'm not saying that Dan Herron's the worst pitcher ever, but it just seems funny that that's who the Cardinals get shut down by. And usually it's not a known guy. That's what's kind of trippy about it. Usually it's not a known guy that shuts him out, but Dan Herron did. But looking into that, you kind of hope really that they're not going to play Alvarez, that you get the Pirates, because they're mostly going to go for their pitching and defense. Even having Sean Rodriguez in the play-in game tonight at first, not Pedro Alvarez. I mean, that tells you right there that they're more focused on stopping the other team from scoring before they start scoring. But we'll see who we get. Get the first 2 games at home, 1 game on the road. So, all right, we're moving on next. We'll go talk to the Rams. We'll talk some Mizzou. We'll also talk some Blues in the next segment right here on the Sports Blog, Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. You can also text us now on our little text line thing, 314-387-9323. Before we get to the Rams, we'll talk a little Mizzou. And I talked about the South Carolina game on the football show on Saturday and how it really was an impressive win for Mizzou and how Ish Witter turned into an actually good running back for one day. But if you didn't hear that Mighty Mark got suspended again, I actually was reading a story, and supposedly he's already failed multiple drug tests for weed, and now this one's was either prescription drugs or Molly. And then this other guy, same thing, that got suspended with him. And it explains the hair, I guess. You see Matty Monk's hair lately, but wow. To be a guy that had it all for him right there, he was going to be the starter no matter what on this team as long as he did nothing wrong and stay on the roster. Basically, the only thing that you would have thought that would got him would be an injury, and now he might never start for the Mizzou Tigers again. And it was kind of evident this week, after he got suspended, is that it's probably over for Matty Mark. And definitely if it's something that they're still not telling us what it is and he's getting suspended 2 weeks for it. And that Drew Lock actually played well in the first game. I wonder what would happen if Drew Lock just played horrible. Would the same thing happen? And usually Pinkel is pretty strict with his suspicions that he'll stay with him. DGB for one. I think actually got rid of DGB when it happened again. But it's crazy to think that the for sure starting quarterback would risk something like this, even if the story is true that he already failed multiple drug tests. And that he knew that he wasn't playing all that well and he had somebody on his heels. That he would really risk it by flunking another drug test. And it was just a crazy story I read, so kind of wanted to put it out there. Mizzou going in a big game, number 25 Florida, who have some of the best defensive backs in the league, and you'll really see what Drew Lock and this offense could do. And hopefully Russell Hamsborough is healthy, because that's what you really need, is the running game to be strong again. So hopefully your offensive line plays as good as they did last week, and you can split more carries between Russell Hamsborough and Ish Witter. All right, let's move it on to the Rams. And after the games in Washington and the game against Pittsburgh, you kind of thought the Rams were going to go into this week 1-3 and end up going to Green Bay and then being 1-4. But again, I said on the football show, your special teams is going to have to get you something, and your defense is going to have to play well. Now, the defense didn't play all that great, don't get me wrong. Palmer, 352 passing yards, and they did do well in the running game. Chris Johnson, 16 for 83. Basically, kind of funny, kind of what Marshawn Lynch had in the first week. I think he had 18 for 87. So you didn't allow the big runs that I thought was going to happen with Chris Johnson, as he's been playing well. And then finally, you actually played your wide receiver on offense as a wide receiver instead of a running back. But the defense and the special teams is what started off for you. You're going to have to get a big special teams play to win against teams like this when you don't have the explosiveness that you had need on offense like the Cardinals have with Fitzgerald, John Brown, Malcolm Floyd. But on the first play of the game, Rams special teams gets the fumble, leads to a touchdown to Tavon Austin. And then basically after that, you did little to nothing on offense. And then it's not like that your defense was all with it either. But in this game, 4 sacks. Long and Laurinaitis were on the sack chart. I could not believe that I seen James Laurinaitis and Chris Long on the sack chart. When's the last time you've seen both of them on the sack chart? Much less one. But without that play on special teams to start off, and you get the early touchdown because you only had to go 20 or so yards. I mean, your offense literally did nothing after that. Until the fourth quarter, and then a guy named Todd Gurley decided to show up and run Arizona out of the building. I mean, first 100 yards by a Rams since 2000 in a quarter. And he had 19 carries for 146, no touchdowns, longer 52, 7 for 7 carry. And then you only had to use Austin twice, and it was actually on reverses that he outran the defense. And they probably weren't expecting it. You only ran Benny Mason for 4 times, minus 1 yard. 6.3 carry average total, 164 yards rushing. This is what you had to do. And the only way that you're going to win these games is not to allow touchdowns. And again, time of possession, 33-13 to 26-17 Cards led in that. But then when they got down in the red zone, the Rams stopped them. 1 of 5 in the red zone for the Cardinals on Sunday. 1 of 5. They scored 1 touchdown. Now, they did have a drop. They didn't seem too great at running the ball. But it shows you sometimes what happens when you just get pressure on the quarterback. And Palmer made bad decisions. He made a lot of inaccurate throws when he was down there. And it led to you getting the win. And when you get 3 turnovers, Janoris had 1 interception in the end zone on a deep ball. And then you run it, what Gurley did, you're going to have a chance to win every game. I mean, Foles, 24 passes, only 171, but had 3 touchdowns. Because the first one where your defense fit you, Tavon finally got a long catch down the field. You get the touchdown to Bailey, who got fined for sleeping on the ball in the end zone. And then, of course, when Gurley's running, you got 50 yards in every play, which it seemed like he had a 50, a 33, and a 20. You're going to get downfield, and that's when you're going to score points. And it was nice to see Gurley to come out at a time when you weren't expecting the Rams to get any offense, any running game going. You can say it was the offensive line, but you kind of seen Todd Gurley just make his own holes, run up past people. They said there was a lot of bad angles, and you could watch him in the game. You seen guys cutting at him, and they couldn't catch him. So they could say the offensive line played great, only allowed 1 sack. You see him full is under pressure. I mean, some of his throws, I don't understand when he's under pressure, he just throws it up in an arch, and he did it on the touchdown to Stedman Bailey, and got lucky he was wide open. But it was Todd Gurley's day, and that's just how it was. Now, the bad thing for you is Ogletree got injured. He had 10 tackles. Why did he got injured? Probably your leading tackler, unless Laurinaitis caught Chris Johnson for 14 times when he was 5 yards downfield. You bring back Jolon Dunbar. Can you figure that one? Really? Can you figure that one out? That's what you're going to hear, though. The Rams aren't going to bring back people they don't know. It just doesn't happen, and I don't understand why they don't do it. I really don't. Is they just bring the people back that already know this team. And it's understandable, I guess, that they know the system. Dunbar's been here for a couple years. They really don't use 3 linebackers. So I don't know how much that Jolon Dunbar is going to be out there, how much Akeem Ayer is going to be out there. Because I think it's going to be a lot of Mark Barron to replace him. Because that's basically what he's been all year anyways as a linebacker. He knows the system. He just got to make tackles now. And you see that T.J. McDonald is starting to play on the run a little bit more too. So that's another guy that's going to go downfield and make tackles for you too. But you got to stop the penalties. 70 for 66. You got to start having some time of possession. Every game you can't let the team just basically have the ball the whole time. And you're going to go against a guy that if you give him all that time, he's going to put up a lot of points against you. And definitely with the penalties, if you go out there and you have a lot of penalties on defense, this guy lives off the free plays. On them free plays, when he sees the flag, he's going for it all. And he's going for the deep ball, and he's going for the home run. And that's something that the Rams haven't stopped in a long, long time. I mean, you got lucky this week. The deep ball, Joe Norris didn't get beat all the way. He probably did get beat and caught back up. That's probably what happened. Guy wasn't as fast, or a bad throw by Palmer. Another let Joe Norris catch up a little bit. But, and I'm complaining a lot about a game that we won that we beat the best team in our division as of right now. Seattle got a lucky win this week, of course. A bad rule, another bad call against the Lions, another good call going for Seattle. But that was the best team in our division coming to this game, and you shut them down when you needed to. It was just in the red zone, 1 for 5. And then you played efficient enough on offense to where it got you some points. And then, of course, special teams and defense is going to be the keys for this team winning. So you're just hoping up when we go up against Green Bay, it's kind of the same thing. Special teams do big things for you, and you don't let that team score within the red zone because they're going to get into the red zone. They got too many weapons. They also got a really good running back. You hope you keep him and not to the big runs. And you hope you get an extra couple turnovers on defense, another interception, Fitzgerald fumble, maybe you hopefully get a Randall Cobb fumble running down the field. But Todd Gurley has to run the ball, but you have to keep possession of the football. You have to keep getting first downs. You can't let a team like Green Bay basically W in first downs and think you're going to win the game because it's not going to happen. Because Aaron Rodgers is going to find a way to score touchdowns. Carson Palmer is not Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers, I guarantee you, is going to find ways to score touchdowns. So, basically, big teams, it's going to be another week of special teams and another week of defense for the Rams to even have a chance to win this game in Green Bay. And hopefully it's just like this game, you get it early so you can score early and get the ball rolling. But we'll see what happens in Green Bay. All right, now let's get on to a little Blues talk. And you kind of figure what was going to happen with the Blues. Maybe in the goalie front after what happened in the preseason. Elliott was going to get the first start against Edmonton in the first pick overall, Connor McDavid. But Elliott, .866 goals against, .965 save percentage. Proving again that he really is a starting goalie. Now, really, he only lost his job last year due to injury. So hopefully, basically, he hasn't shown that he's going to have another good year, but you know that they're going to split up the time between him and Jake Allen, and I just don't know when they're going to move on or who they're going to move to. I still haven't figured out what they want to do with the goalie situation, and maybe they think it's best to have a two-goalie system. But they haven't really picked. You thought the clear favorite was going to be Jake Allen after his run in the playoffs. In the first game, Brian Elliott's getting in. It's really mind blowing. It's really hard to think about when you're like, what is going on with this team with the goaltenders? And great, I'm glad to have two great goaltenders. But what happens when you get to the playoff? Do they switch off every game? I mean, it's just crazy. It just hasn't make it just And sometimes, like when you think about it, you're like, you go look at the stats, you're like, wow, it should be Elliott. Then you go look at this and see how young Jake Allen is and see how good everybody thinks he can be, and you're like, no, it should be Jake Allen. Just because he's young, you need to get the young guys in. And the Blues have started to move towards the youth movement a little bit. Yet they still want these veterans on their team, and obviously they still want some kind of veteran force and goalie. And I'm not saying that Brian Elliott shouldn't be the goalie. He's one of the best goalies in the league and proven it over the past few years. But I think somewhere in there you have to pick a flavor and kind of let them roll a little bit to get ready for the playoff run. And I know that a lot of road games early, probably going to switch off, a lot of traveling, trying to stay away from St. Louis because the Cardinals in the playoffs. Smart move by the Blues. Probably knowing that they're probably going to get a little extra money this year because of what's going on in St. Louis with the Rams. But if this guy was going to be your clear goalie and get the first game and all that, why wasn't he your clear guy in the playoffs? It just doesn't quite make any sense to me. But the Cardinals are starting a little bit of the youth movement really on the defense and a little bit on the offensive lines. But they did sit down Magnus Paajarvi, Ty Rattie, Chris Butler, and Peter Lindblom. They signed Scotty Upshaw and also signed Scott Gomez. So two veterans there. Really Upshaw and Brazak and Kyle Brazak, who also made runner Scott Gomez, are all going to be fighting for spots on this roster at times, mostly. I think Brazak and Scotty Upshaw are going to get a lot of player time with Reeves being out. You also got Steve Ott getting older, even though Scotty Upshaw is 31 years old. But they also have, another veteran, Scott Gomez, and is this really just saying we're looking too much at the veteran presence. Like, man, I just don't understand that. I understand a little bit of Paajarvi, but I don't understand why Ty Rattie's not getting a shot yet. And they did keep Joel Edmondson, their 2011 second-round pick. Colton Partaco, third-round 2012 pick. He led all D-men in the preseason with 6 assists. And you like to see young defensive players getting in there. Hopefully start being replacements for Bouwmeester and some of your older guys. But then they also did bring in their 2014 pick, Robbie February, on the team. 21st overall. 19 years old. They're saying they're basically going to give him the 9-game tryout. At least they're trying to figure out some way to start scoring goals. And I guess he's going to be a third-line player, maybe a fourth-line guy. But, it's, it's time to get over some of these older players that hit shot gloves they have on this team, and also the players that have been here forever, the Berglunds. Really, the only reason that Scott Gomez is on this roster is because no Berglund. Same reason probably for Upshaw and Broziak too, just to give another veteran presence. But it's nice to see the 19-year-old kid getting a shot finally in this system that really likes to give their guys a lot of work before bringing them up. But I'm tired of the same old Blues. I'm tired of the same old every year. And this has been minus Oshie now with Brouwer coming in, which is still back. It's still steam. It's still, Berglund's still around. Ott's been here for a few years. And it's nice to see him to start going different and younger players. Dmitry Yaskin, Yuri Ethra, Tarasenko, and now Fabry. At least change it up a little bit so we have some kind of like, oh, this isn't going to happen again this year, is it? So we can at least think that something different is going to happen. Because it's great to have 100 points in a regular season and win the President's Cup every year. But when you don't do it in the playoffs, it kind of gets old. And maybe we are starting to have some hope that the Blues are going to try something different, getting Brouwer and letting Fabry come up. Also, the two D-men, Joel Edmondson and Colin Partenko. Start getting the young guys starting to roll and see what they can do because these other guys haven't done it. You see a veteran like Chris Butler going down. But the Ratty thing, just him not getting a shot yet when he's been a pretty good point man down there for Chicago. And I think he even played a little bit for the Peoria Chiefs. I just don't understand it. Just another young guy that should get a shot on a team that needs scoring. It just ticks me off a little bit. Same thing with the goalie. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk something that happened when I was 3 years old, but we'll talk about it just for the fun of it. That's the Sports Blog on Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Howard Bowlesby here with you. Tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. Tweet the Greater STL Sports Network, Greater STLSN. You can find all these videos on Ustream or YouTube now, as I finally figured out the internet a little bit. And you can also text into the show, 314-387-9323. Maybe start using that number for voicemails. Haven't quite decided if I want to do that yet. Never know what's going to say. Alright, before we get into weird news, yesterday, 25 years ago, was the fifth down game for Mizzou. Mizzou up 31-27 going into the fourth quarter. Colorado drives down the field, and they get an extra down, end up scoring a touchdown. Some think that might not have even been a touchdown. Some thought that quarterback Charles Johnson for Colorado to get to the line. And I was 3 years old, but I remember hearing about this game all the time as I was growing up. And it's just crazy to think that the refs couldn't figure out. The guy that worked for Mizzou was the guy holding the down marker. He couldn't figure it out. That the coaches couldn't figure it out. And then it wasn't stopped. There was also another conspiracy in that game too, and officials momentarily stopped the game, saying Mizzou players were stalling off getting off Colorado's running back and stopped the game clock with 7 seconds left. Now I don't know if that happened before the touchdown or the spike that was actually on fourth down, but then Colorado got the ball back. But it's just crazy to think about. There were so many things that could have happened differently that where Mizzou won this game. And because of a yard marker and the referees not getting on track with each other, they let it happen. They asked the coach after the game if he was forfeit. I think he was actually a Mizzou alum, Bill McCartney. But he said he thought about it but didn't want to do it because the field was too lousy. And his players kept slipping and falling. And that was a reason for him to get a free down, I guess. But and then they went down even farther where Big Ed Commissioner said after Mizzou appeals that the allowance of the fifth down to Colorado is not a post-game correctable error, and therefore Colorado's win would stand. Why is it not a post-game correctable error? Go back and play the downs then. That's not post-game. That's having the game replayed. How is that something? And it's just funny that this year that they lost to Indiana. Doesn't it seem like we have bad seasons when we lose to Indiana? Even though I think we won the title in the SEC. But we lost to Indiana that year. Actually beat two good teams that we actually had a good schedule with Bob Stahl. Arizona State and Utah State, we beat them. Kent Kiefer, do you remember him? I don't. I was 3 years old. He was the quarterback for Mizzou. And there's a fifth down bar in Columbia with the motto, "We don't sell cores here." That's a banner that's on the front door. We get Colorado fifth down. We aren't paying for their beer. So that's nice. A little refresher of the fifth down game happened 25 years ago yesterday. All right, on to weird news. A man accused of robbing an auto parts store in Apple Valley had arrested despite disguising his face by strategically putting a maxi pads on his eyes. Surveillance video shows a man with a Fenneman hygiene taped on his head uses a piece of wood to break the glass front door of the Battery Mart, slip and slide in the store. The suspect stole several battery chargers, flashlights before fleeing. Right away, everybody started saying we should call this guy the Maxi Pad Bandit, said owner Mark Window. We had a good picture of his face because he came to the store the first time and looked in the window without the Maxi Pad on his face. The police made the face out and arrested the 51-year-old Gary Victor. He was arrested and taken into custody for suspicion of burglary and possession of stolen property. The stolen items were taken back to the Battery Mart. The Maxi Pad was put in the evidence. And if it's only hiding this, though, you gotta go in there real hard. You got to put the Maxi Pads everywhere. You gotta do it big if you're gonna do it. So, we'll move on. 47-year-old Gary Howard was sentenced Thursday in Westmoreland County Court in Pennsylvania for robbery and assaulting an elderly woman during home invasion. Howard and 24 accomplices took $13,000 in jewelry. In his closing arguments, he referred to Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny. After his sentence, he was allowed in civilian clothes and was shackled and allowed to get married in a down-hall courtroom. The wedding was attended by 5 deputies and the bride's baby. And this lady still wanted to marry this guy. After she knew he was going to prison for whoever knows how long and all that. And she said, yeah, come over in the shackles. I'll bring my baby. Yeah, you 5 cops can watch. What's going on? Let's get married. And this guy's like, okay, I'll do it. I guess he just wants whatever benefits comes with it. I don't know what benefits come with you being married or anywhere. But anything like that. But, yeah, that's a pretty weird story. 2 weird ones for me from Missouri is in St. Charles, St. Louis County. Danielle Beasley, 44, faces sexual misconduct charges after exposing himself to St. Joseph's Hospital. He was seen exposing himself in a hallway about 6 a.m. He then entered a waiting room where 2 people saw him masturbating and called for security. No details else were given after that. And then the other one from Missouri, in Winsfield, 53-year-old man strangely entered a home on Bryan Court, removed his clothes and went to sleep in an empty bedroom, while the occupants of the residence were in another room. Gregory Trent Cole was discovered about 8 a.m. on Sunday and charged Monday with felony burglary. According to court records, he was also charged with harassment, misdemeanor, by causing emotional distress. The family living there in Cole, he was called with emotional distress for the family that was living there. Cole was being held in St. Charles County Jail with bail set at $15,000. Number one on the first story, in both stories, why are you taking your clothes off? Number one, at random people's houses, and the other first story at a hospital. Really, a hospital? where they got nothing but security cameras and just walking around with their dingling out. And we never said what he was there. I wonder what he was even doing there. St. Louis County, that doesn't make any sense why he would go to St. Charles. We just decided to go and walk in the waiting room where people are standing and just do whatever he wants. The other guy breaks in at home. He doesn't even care, just takes his clothes off, goes to sleep in a spare bedroom. There were some reports that it was a 6-year-old room, which makes it 10 times worse, I would guess, but at least the 6-year-old wasn't in there. I guess that's a good thing, but what are people thinking? I mean, I guess these are homeless people that are just trying to find a place to stay or something like that. Or, man, I just don't see that kind of stuff, like me doing that kind of stuff. All right, we're going to have 2 DraftKings stories, so we'll have this one. Then weird news. Depressed Carl Johnson. This is actually winner for guy news. Depressed Carl Johnson, 27, from Chicago, Illinois, who just lost his job as a financial analyst and had incurred over $9,000 of credit card bills he could not afford to pay back. Just when he thought his situation could not get any worse, Amy Parkerson, his long-term girlfriend, decided to leave him. This is what she said, of course. It was just his lack of motivation. Carl was the sweetest guy, but was in a never-ending hole. My girlfriend would constantly tell me that I needed someone with drive who could take care of me financially. I just never saw Carl being that person. Ha ha. Carl was browsing the internet one day and found a fantasy sports site, Draft Ops, and signed up also with a prediction service called Fantasy Sport Predictor, and thought a lot of their tips for picking the right roster. He also mentioned that you still need to do a lot of research on the different players, though. After less than 1 year, Johnson made $362,259 from fantasy sports. The story was soon after picked up by a local newspaper in Chicago. Amy, who receives the paper daily, immediately saw her ex-boyfriend the color. Her feelings toward Carl quickly changed. She started calling me, texting me, emailing, saying she wanted to give it another go, saying she wanted to make it work, that she loved me, that she missed me, that she couldn't imagine her life without me. Carl reported that. Carlo is currently remaining single. And that's just a win for guys. You know how girls are. Sometimes that's all they want. It's his money. And that proves that's all. He couldn't take care of me. He lost his job. And things happen. Girls, give the guys a chance. I mean, I'm sorry we can't bring you $1 million. We can't bring you everything. But when we do something good, I mean, take that as $1 million. Because it doesn't happen a whole lot to where we do something right. But we give you as much money as we can, I promise you. I promise. Now, how about this CC Sabathia thing? And I forgot to talk on the sports blog about the wild card playoffs. And I wanted to say something earlier that I knew something was going to happen. Or someone's going to say the Yankees lost because CC was in rehab. He wasn't with the team, and he's the glue of the team. Like they're going to say with Yachty. Yachty needs to be here because he's the team leader, and he's the glue that keeps his team together. But then he's going to enter rehab for alcohol treatment. Said he loves baseball and his teammates, blah, blah. Was fully aware what time he was doing it. Hurts me deeply not to be out there, but I owe it to myself and my family to get myself right. I'm looking forward to be out there on the field with my team next season, a game that brings me so much happiness. Now, this is crazy because it was just on a spur of a moment thing. Nobody really even knew about it. Brian Cashman said he wasn't expecting the call or not expecting to hold the press conference that he had to hold. But it's crazy that some of these guys just can't control themselves. And it's crazy enough that you didn't know about this guy. So at least he was controlling himself enough to where he wasn't bringing it out to the forefront. But that he wasn't controlling himself enough to where I had to stop him from what is his life. And now he's... I mean, I wonder if the Yankees are getting any kind of money back for this or if they even care. But it's just kind of funny that there actually were some instances, though, that maybe people didn't know or see. He got into a dispute with an airline staff member in December. He was ejected from a baseball game for balls and strikes for the first time since 2006. and got to a confrontation outside a club in Detroit that led to a fight that occurred, even though he was not involved in a fight. I bet he was in Toronto at a Drake concert. And why doesn't nobody go at Drake for Degrassi? How's that not brought out for the forefront yet? Is it because he just killed Meek Mill and now nobody wants to get bodied by a singing guy? I mean, are they scared of him now? I guess he's just that good of a rapper that it doesn't matter. It don't matter. As long as you're rich, you can do whatever you want. You can go play on Degrassi. They should bring him back on Degrassi. Have fun with that again. Alright, moving on to some NBA stuff is Derek Fisher and Matt Barnes are fighting because, well, Derek Fisher's dating his ex-wife. Pipping it up, Derek Fisher. I guess he didn't like that, Matt Barnes. And, it is your ex-wife. I mean, she's free to do whatever you want. So is he. If she wants it, hey, what's up? And from one of his pictures I seen, it wasn't bad. I have big doings for Derek Fisher. I'm on the Derek Fisher fan club now. And, kind of crazy to see that a player's going after a coach. Now, I don't know how close they are to age. Matt Barnes has been in the league for a while. I mean, Derek Fisher was in the league for about 55 years. So, I don't know who wins in a fight there. I bet Derek Fisher's probably not jumping in and lifting weights or nothing like that. But the Matt Barnes actually went and tried to confront Fisher about this, Derek Fisher about the situation. He went after him, like, even though it's his ex-wife. I don't, I guess maybe they're friends. They thought they were friends, and now he's going behind his back and doing some unfriend stuff. For a crazy story there. And then also, Stephen A. Smith and Kevin Durant. As you know, Kevin Durant, well, first Stephen A. Smith went on his show First Take and said that KD doesn't sign with OKC. LA is his primary objective, opposed to South Beach or even Washington, D.C. Durant said, I don't talk to Stephen A. Smith at all. Nobody in my family, my friends, they don't talk to Stephen A. Smith. So he's lying. If you ask me a question, I'll talk to you about it. But like I said before, I have people who I talk to about everything, and I know for a fact they didn't talk to Stephen A. Smith. He's making up the story that KD was wanting to go to LA, that he wasn't staying in OKC. Or basically saying that he's just making up things. And then Stephen A. Smith went back on First Take and said he's got sources, he knows all this. And said if he's lying, he should sign a long-term deal with OKC, and that you don't want to make an enemy out of me. I'm not having it. I have done nothing wrong. And basically saying that the NBA player is not going to take down big bad Stephen A. Smith, who's the biggest idiot in the world. One of the biggest idiots on sports anywhere is Stephen A. Smith. I mean, if you listen to any sports talk radio, Stephen A. Smith is the worst. I mean, if you listen to sports talk radio in St. Louis, you've heard some really bad hosts over there, and I'm telling you right now, on TV, on the radio, Stephen A. Smith is the worst listened to in the world. And he makes up stuff. Him and Skip Bayless just make up things. They lie. They go on a show and lie to get ratings. Somehow people watch the crap and say, oh, great, it's great to hear him and argue about stupid crap. Crap that doesn't make any sense. Crap that's made up. And they pay him more than $300 million a year. And I looked up Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless only supposedly gets $500,000 a year. But they paid Stephen A. Smith, a lying, stupid, not very educated, at sports at least. They pay him over $3 million a year. I should apply for SportsCenter. If they should watch this show, I should apply. I should get $3 million a year. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm smarter and I am more sensible than Stephen A. Smith. And I wonder if ESPN goes out of their way to make people mad to say, Stephen A. Smith, you should act this way. And he goes out there and he makes up stuff about Kevin Durant or about football or about baseball or whatever he wants to make up about. And goes on the show and Skip Bayless says, oh, you're right, Stephen A. Smith. Yeah, you're right. But let's compare it to things like this. And then Skip Bayless says something to Stephen, well, you're wrong, Skip. Well, I might be wrong, but Stephen A., and it's just a stupid show. At least that part of the show, it's the whole premise of it is stupid. It's made up. And the show's based off non-factual things by two guys that don't know what the hell they're talking about. And it's stupid. And I'm glad Kevin Durant made out of him. And I hope Kevin Durant doesn't talk to him ever again or makes an enemy out of him. I hope he really does. Alright, let's just get on that second DraftKings story. And now it's just getting crazy. After you had the New Jersey guy, Frank DiPaolo Jr., now you have a guy that releases info to where he will, that are the Million Man Maker game that's usually not released until all lines are finalized. He released it early. Then he goes on FanDuel and wins $350,000 on a FanDuel game, even though he works for DraftKings. But now everybody's getting involved. There's ESPN or DraftKings pulled some of their advertising from ESPN. You got guys from New York governor now trying to get involved in it. Or not the governor, but one of the representatives from New York trying to get involved in it. You got them banning their players from playing on other fantasy sites. Even though they weren't allowed to play on DraftKings and stuff like that. They were allowed to go into other sites. Now that's getting banned. And this is a story that really didn't need to come out this time. Definitely with the New Jersey Democrat Frank Pallone looking into it. The guy won $350,000 off a website, messed up and released information he shouldn't have released. Number one, that somebody called him on it. But number two, that he did it in the first place. When you're working for one of the biggest companies that's probably paying you a lot of money, and that you did something dumb like release some information when you were probably in there getting paid, and then you knew information to where you could go and get paid off other sites. And I'm not saying he was getting paid like $500,000, but he could be getting paid $75,000 or $100,000 a year, which isn't the biggest money in the world. But to sit there and be some scientist or a computer, I would love it. And he's probably getting paid more than that because he probably went to college and all that and has degrees and stuff that I don't have. But this was not the time for this to come out for either one of these. Definitely with people looking into it, with all the scrutiny that's out there already, with people wanting to call it gambling, and people mad that it got the free pass when the poker all got shut down. And this is a whole different entity with, actual real sponsors buying into it, ESPN, the NFL. You see it when you go to the Blues hockey games all over the boards. This is a big entity that's going to go down because of some stupid guy did some dumb and released some information. I don't know how they found out that he won the money on FanDuel. I guess there's a way to figure that out, and maybe if he released the information with his name on it, and then they went and looked through FanDuel for all winners and found him, then I guess that's the way to go. But Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft have stakes in DraftKings, who's the NFL, has become the international partner with the United Kingdom for their fantasy stuff. There's a lot of money involved in this that could be ruined by something that you would think in some way is so small, because even with the information of all the people picking whoever, you would still have to pick the right set of players. It's not like if everybody's picking Aaron Rodgers and Adrian Peterson, well, so what? They're the best player. That's what's going to happen. But there's certain players in there that you're going to have to pick. They're going to get you more points to get you to them higher level games. And so this guy did his research. He does his research for the website. And it's something so small because the information released really isn't important. It's really not going to do nothing for anybody. So to think that you were basically running on free reign already, and if something like this is going to mess it up, it's just phenomenal to me. It really is kind of crazy to think that people are actually digging this far to find out that the guy did this. And this guy did this at a time when people are really going hard at DraftKings and FanDuel for basically being legalized gambling. And a lot of these guys, you understand, they voted for it. And so it was the loophole that was put in by the people that are now disputing it. But for them to already, they must be worried. For them to already, FanDuel and DraftKings coming together to make statements. DraftKings pulling out some of their advertising at ESPN. FanDuel's probably doing the same thing at some other entity that they got. It's just kind of confusing to me to think that something so small could bring something so big down so quickly. But that these companies, with all this networking and all this internet stuff that they've already probably had to figure out with people trying to steal your credit card information, that they like couldn't catch us and somehow get it away from there. That they just didn't care about it. It seems like that they didn't think it was a big deal, and now they're basically having to band together with their competitors to try to pull themselves out of this mess. And I don't really know what's going to happen in this situation because I'm not a lawyer or anything, but this is where they're going to lose a lot of their money because now it's going to have to be regulated by some kind of entity. And basically you're going to have a bookie or somebody watching over DraftKings and FanDuel, basically monetizing it and watching its every move to make sure that it stays in the letter of the law. But to think that something that didn't matter got released by a guy that ended up going on the rival website and winning money, it's going to cost these people so much money because they didn't stop it. I mean, that's just really crazy to even think about. So I don't know if it's a glorious day or a bad news day or what you want to call it. You can text 314-387-9323. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think? But for 20 years and 58 million, National Car Rental has bought the naming rights to the proposed St. Louis Stadium on the riverfront. But also there comes out a story that Ray Hartman, who's really is just, he's a negative guy about everything that happens with the St. Louis, with anything sports, doesn't want the taxpayers paying for anything, wants a vote. He's just been negative the whole time and saying that this, based on the other stadiums and this and that this is going to cost taxpayers $250 million instead of the $180 million or $190 million that was proposed. And it's only him that would come out with the story, Ray Hartman. And I must sound like a 97-year-old guy right here. I listen to a lot of AM sports talk radio, and I do watch Donnie Brook whenever I can there and catch it here and there. But just the way he is on there shows you that he just doesn't, he's negative. He doesn't want this. He could keep saying he's been a PSL holder since 1995 and blah, blah, blah. And glad you got the money to do all that and to be basically a little whiny bitch about the whole situation the whole time. And act like you do want the Rams and you want St. Louis to be. And no, he wants to always look at the story in a negative light and say, and he's going to, of course, go after this and say, based on this, this is what's going to happen. But now you know that you have some kind of corporate support in St. Louis. Definitely it's one of the richest families, even though it's not saying Enterprise. National Car Rental is still owned by Enterprise. Now the field sounds kind of crazy, National Car Rental Field. But it's nice to have corporate support, and what you gotta hope is that corporate support from other companies falls behind that. And you know that Budweiser's probably going to have some kind of support over there that we're not hearing about yet. Definitely with Dave Peacock running this show for the task force, basically the point man on the situation. But hopefully this starts a flow down there on the riverfront. Not to, for other sponsors to want to get involved and help front the stadium. And I keep harping and harping and harping and harping. And I know it's like it sounds stupid, but I'm telling you, they should try to go get the Cardinals involved. I know there's some kind of business that the DeWitts can promote somewhere, somehow, on that stadium. Then you get the soccer games off Busch Stadium. Don't leave Busch Stadium alone. Don't mess with that. No, it sounds like a Homer Cardinal thing, a rights holder Cardinal thing, but it's really not. What it is saying don't affect something like the Cardinals field when you can do it over there in the football stadium and still make your piece of the pie off it too. If you're investing in that stadium, you're going to get some money off it, and you say, hey, because we're the Cardinals, we're the ones that, we'll still orchestrate all the Cardinal games or all the soccer games, but we'll have them on your field. You make most of the money. We make this little bit here and there, and they don't have to worry about it messing up the field. Busch Stadium, definitely, when I think the soccer fields are already oddly shaped anyways, when they do put it out there. And it would be much better on a field that's already going to pertain to try to get an MLS team. But as soon as for this to happen, for Ray Hartman to go out there and say, well, and he could probably going to say that he had a story a while ago and he was holding on to it and blah, blah, blah. But this is him being negative and always look at the situation in the hard way. And yeah, it could cost taxpayers more money. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. It could maybe cost them a little bit more money. But where is that tax money going to go anyways? I mean, you got politicians across in Illinois stealing all their money to where they're firing their police officers and firefighters because they can't pay them. They're laying them off. They can't get along with their teachers. Yeah, we're over here fighting over. I know it sounds like a lot of money, and it's going to be a percentage somewhere. I don't know how involved where I live in St. Charles is really affected with it, but you don't have the right to even worry about it anymore. Even if it's pros, because the vote's already been told you no. So no matter what happens, oh well, and it's just paid off the bonds anyway, so really it's just an extension of more bonds. And that's how it's going to get paid off. I mean, there's a lot of entities that work here. I mean, you got the Dave Peacocks, and you have the NFL. I can't remember what the actual thing's called, but the NFL gives you money for new stadiums. This might lay off Stan Kroenke's bit of the money too, because the stadium's supposedly not even going to be owned by him, which I don't see why they haven't wrote somewhere in the contract to give him a certain percentage, to give him some kind of enticement. But maybe they're just like F. Stan Kroenke because you shouldn't have came up with the LA thing first. And he got to make his pitch out there to the owners for the Rams moving to LA, while some NFL consultant, of course, got the pitch for the three cities that want to keep their team. But you don't think, why wouldn't he, if he's the Rams stay here, you don't think he would want to be a percentage on that stadium? To maybe lower down the lease, not be the leaseholder and all that? Wouldn't you think that the DeWitts might want to, invest a little bit of it? There's something to throw in there, and I mean, the DeWitt thing's, out of the world crazy. I know, I understand that. But secure it. Secure the money first. And supposedly that's what some people Stan might be waiting on, is for all the money to be secured and all the land to be bought. And that's great all and well. But how would you know that by the way he's acted about it? And now people need to start getting a little more on board. At least you're getting some help. I know that the naming rights automatically pay for the stadium, but you're getting double the money now than you were from getting the money from Edward Jones. And I don't know when Edward Jones' deal expires. I wonder what they think about that. Or maybe it's called National Rental Car Field and the Edward Jones Stadium, or Edward Jones Riverfront Stadium, whatever. It might be something like that. You never know. I mean, there's always ways to make money. But it's time for other people to get on board. I'm not saying just the businesses and not the big businesses, but I'm saying people in general. That you need to go out there and, I'm not saying support the Rams, but watch it on TV. And give this team a chance. I mean, just because they're going to leave or have a chance of leaving, let's not give them a reason to. And I'm not saying to go pay a bunch of money down there at the Dome. At this point, I wouldn't either. And I haven't yet. Why would I? Why would I give... And he's not like he's getting all the money, because the stadium is the owner that... The stadium of commission is the St. Louis Stadium Commission, whatever you want to call it, is the sole representative, or the owner of that stadium. So they're getting money too out of this, which also helps back probably pay the bond somewhere in there with that tax and all that. But it's not like, people also need to know that it's not like the Edward Jones Dome is going to be just some hole in the, just some big place in the middle of nowhere. You're going to have conventions there, which is also going to bring money back to pay off stuff from the Edward Jones Dome. You're going to have the conventions at this other new stadium, which is going to have to pay for this new stadium. And there's a lot of entities at work here, a lot of things at stake, and a lot of things that can be brought to St. Louis just by building this stadium. And then they're also trying to work it in with the new Arch Ground project. And Enterprise has been funding all this money. Forest Park. Now they put the money in the stadium. They put $100 million into the Arch. I mean, they're really trying to hold St. Louis together. And I don't know how much they've been involved with Dave Peacock and stuff like that, but hopefully, with them, being involved, it also helps because, put that land less. People might want to give up their land, and now they maybe don't like it's real happening. Like, I don't want to give up my business for no reason. And they tear my business down, and then there's still nothing there, and then St. Louis is still the same old St. Louis. Now maybe you start to think something's happening to where it's easier to get that land secured. It's easier for that eminent domain to pop in. It's easier to work with these people that are working with the Arch and trying to maneuver this with this stadium somehow part of the Arch grounds. It's easier to move the railroad tracks and all that. It's easier to probably have to work in with MoDOT and all that for some of these bridges that they're planning on building. It makes it a lot easier, and these people know you have support. That this is a real chance it's going to happen. And we can't let it fall by the wayside just because we don't want to pay our money to some guy that wants nothing to do with St. Louis. There's a lot of ways of spending money that doesn't always go to him, that also helps affect the stadium. And most of that's going to that stadium. Most of that's going to the conventions at that Edward Jones Dome. Most of that's just showing support by watching the games and stuff too, because then that's a better chance to keep the Rams here. It's a better chance to get a new stadium. It's a better chance to open up for more events to come to both of them places, other than having it shut off 10 games a year in the Edward Jones Dome, which sits all kinds of people. Just think of all the people you could fit in there for anything and not have to worry about football. Then you can get whatever you want. I mean, a lot of these things do come around in the fall and stuff to gauge you more money, because they probably don't want to do it in the cold. There's a lot of people that get put to work. And that's another thing. Opens up a lot more jobs at both places. It's not like the people are going to be walking across the street to the Dome to work at both places. I mean, there's probably going to be stuff going on at that Dome, just like there is with stuff going on at the Scott Trade Center, just like there's baseball going on at that Busch Stadium. That's just going to add to the excitement around the whole of St. Louis, and maybe start turning this economy around. Because you're going to have more jobs at the Arch. You're going to have jobs at the stadium. You're probably going to have parking attendants. You're going to have this stuff for the Edward Jones Dome also. It just adds another entity. And for a guy like Ray Hartman and the Rob Schiff guy and Antonio French, who came out and said, if we don't figure out a murder plan, then I'm going to block the stadium stuff too. For all these people to just come in here and try to downgrade basically St. Louis what do you live here for? What do you want? These people don't want this city to be better. They want it to be worse. You don't think there's going to be more jobs for policemen, more money to be made if there's another stadium down there? If you got the Arch grounds going, if you got stuff going on at the Edward Jones Dome, you don't think there's going to be more protection down there? No, these people just think that this thing that you have to. They don't want the money to be spent to better what's going on, but somehow money has to be spent. They tried the hotspot police and it doesn't work. I mean, when you have nothing down there and you have people that are poor and not going to have jobs, they're going to find other ways to make money. They're going to find, and that's what happens is some of the wrong people meet the wrong people down there in the city, and now you got probably a lot of these shootings over drugs and stuff. But just, I mean, I'm not saying that a lot of these people are going to go get jobs when the new stadium's built or things like that. But it might clean it up a little bit to where we are a little bit more of a representative of a town instead of a guy like Antonio French saying, well, put a plan in place or I'm going to block the stadium. Or Ray Hartman to say, oh, this is going to cost more based on this. To put the stadium back, to put it down and say, well, basically, we're not good enough because you're not giving the people the vote, and you don't have plans in place to stop the murder. I mean, the two don't go together. And then Ray Hartman to say, well, based on this, and based on what I hear, and I'm not saying that he doesn't have his sources, but he should be checked hard every time Ray Hartman says something. Because he's another guy that just makes up stories. Kind of like when I was talking about Stephen A. Smith. He's just another guy that makes up stories and always thinks he's right, thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and this is what he hears. Well, if things like this happen, you put the naming rights in the stadium, and then Ray Hartman, of course, said, well, this is going to cost more money. And then the better St. Louis, Antonio French, thinks murder has to do something with the stadium. I mean, nobody wants things to change in St. Louis. They want it to stay the same because I guess that's what they're comfortable with. And they're playing in a stadium that sucks. It's the worst stadium in the world. I mean, I think my TV's bigger than the Jumbotron at Edward Jones Zone. It might be the same size. It might be pretty close. You think that someone's going to play there forever? I mean, and you might say, well, if they bring the conventions there, well, what makes it people want to go to the conventions there? Well, you're going there to watch the conventions. You're going to watch the conventions. If you're going to watch the Rams game and watch entertainment, you're not going to watch it there when the Rams suck. It's not entertaining. They don't make the Rams games entertaining. You don't think going outside and having bigger jumbotrons and maybe trying to get the fans involved a little bit more, give them a place where it's actually enjoyable to watch the game, even if they suck or not, that's going to make a difference. And it just really gets at me when people just don't want to change. They want the same things because they want it their way, and they think that certain people, you should get the vote. Well, the vote's done. And they think that they're know-it-alls, and they think they can better the city if people listen to them. Well, you've been a congressman, or you've been on TV for 20 years. Been on writer for St. Louis Magazine, which is probably funded somewhere by the government, you would think. Not the government, but the city of St. Louis probably gives them money. And he basically just bashes the town and says, oh, well, you're stupid because the stadium's going to cost this much, and blah, blah, blah. And why are we going to have to pay more taxes? Why are we being lied to? Well, because it's people like you that ruin everything for the people that try to get something done. And it's also people like Antonio French and Rob Tripp that ruin it when it's time to make a change, and nobody gives a rat's ass about change. They care about, I'm fighting for my people. No, they care, I'm going to fight for my people so I can get votes, so I can keep my cozy job and my nice trumped up office, so I don't have to, get a real job. I'm going to sit here as a congressman and lie and cheat and get my way through everything, into where I say I'm fighting for my people because I'm fighting to stop the murders instead of the stadium. Well, that's just a lie. That's just their way of getting votes. They would love I'm telling you right now, Ray Hartman and Antonio French would love a new football stadium if they got their way on other things. On what they say they're fighting for the people for. If you got this little stupid vote, and people would probably vote no because that's how stupid St. Louis people are, that don't want to change downtown and don't think we should have to pay for it, that we shouldn't pay for a billionaire owner's a team. He wouldn't own the stadium. The St. Louis Convention, which is supposedly made up which is made up by the city, but the stadium would still be owned by them. It wouldn't even be owned by Stan Kroenke. So that doesn't make any sense. But if they got their vote and it passed, they would find something else to say, oh, well, this vote's wrong because it's going to end up costing us more money, so we should have another vote. Then Antonio French they'd put some murder plan together, and then another 30 murders would happen in 10 days, like what's been happening downtown. And he would say, oh, no, we got to do it again because it didn't work, and my consistency wants it to work. And it's just the way people roll in St. Louis. And it's because the media's so soft here. It's because the people are so soft here, most of them, that actually go out there and vote. And that's another thing, is a lot of people in St. Louis don't go and vote. They really don't care. Give me whatever you want as long as I can get mine and provide for mine. I really don't care. And that's a lot of the problem. And I'm also one of the people that don't really care about voting and all that. And I'm not really into politics and all that. But they know how they can go down there. They find the people that vote, and what do you want? And all the old people that are still living downtown, well, I don't want to pay for the St. Louis Rams stadium. I want you to stop the murder. And that's who he's getting his votes from. So he's gonna go at that angle. I think that the guy in St. Joseph County doesn't want to pay for it because it's not like a lot of people in St. Joseph County are going to Rams games. There's other guys that voted for the Kansas City Chiefs to get a stadium upgrade that don't want the Rams to get their stadium upgrade, but there wasn't votes there. No, you hear one unliable thing because Stan Kroenke made his little thing to move, and now everybody's pissed off and like, I don't want to give that billionaire money. Well, it's get over yourself. You're not really giving him money because he don't own the stadium. He owns the team. That's it. He has to pay. He has to have a lease to be in the stadium. For his team to play in a stadium, he has to have the lease. So and people just think their own way and just think that they're always right. There's two sides to every story. And I'm not gonna pick one. I'll pick both. There is a side that says, hey, it could cost more. Hey, they could leave. But hey, there's also this side that says, hey, finally, someone corporate getting involved. This could lead to other sponsorship. This could help them stay. We should leave this alone. No, I want to go fix murders and whine about what is a percentage of tax increase. The people that would pay the tax anyways for anything that's what else is to go to. You give me a reason that you don't want the tax, and give me a good. Go to say something to fix the streets. No, don't give me something like that. Go to say, hey, it's going to hire this many officers, and then that's something different. But you don't give me anything else that says that. You give me, I just don't want it because I don't want to have a tax on taxpayers. It could go to something else. Well, what else? Name one other thing it could go to. Because you didn't want to pay for the Cardinal Stadium. They threatened to move to Illinois, and we got all scared, and they just said, we'll pay for 90% of the stadium, and built the stadium cheaply. I'm not going to get on that situation. But don't be whining when in 20 years, just like this Edward Jones Dome, the Busch Stadium's going to come up. And then these same people are going to be whining about, we don't want to give the Cardinals money, but they build this ballpark village. They do all these things that bring St. Louis money, just like the Rams. Yeah, we don't want to give them any money. We don't want to give back. Oh, we shouldn't have to. We paid for tickets. No, get over yourself. You don't pay for the streets and stuff anyways. Go ride around on the streets. Go ride around all these highways. So don't tell me it's going to go to something else. Don't tell me that we shouldn't have to pay the tax. I'll probably pay a tax. I'll probably pay whatever the percentage tax is for some stadium. I'm paying a tax for a bunch of other random crap anyways. Take it out more. Hell, go take, when you get the little list for when you pay a ticket, go somehow figure out how to take it out of that. I don't really care. The people that do care are just doing it for votes or doing it for popularity. Because they're still talking about the vote thing. They're still talking about things that are old. Things that don't matter. We don't have a say. We're going to pay for it. We're already paying for one stadium that sucks. Why not actually pay for one that looks halfway decent? Why not pay for that? Why not pay for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for St. Louis to have something special, to have something good downtown, to have something on the riverfront that goes in with the arch? You just want Busch Stadium, a ballpark village, and not even the ballpark village that they wanted, because we wouldn't pay for that either. So they made their own ballpark village, and it's not it's not quite what they wanted, because we're too stupid that we're going to give up on the Cardinals. Let them go to the east side. Well, they're going to get better fans over there. I bet you they would have found a way. It ain't like the Hoosiers that are there now are all the great fans. I bet they're not loving all of them. But don't be, I'm telling you, in 20 years from now, or 2025, whenever that, I think that's 20 years. I think the stadium came up in 2006, so that's basically 20 years. That's what we're going to be, that's what people are going to play. Oh, we got to build another stadium for the Cardinals at 20 years. Well, quit building crappy stadiums. Don't let the owner trade for 90% of a stadium. And then, they're going to build it with what they think is right. Was it they thought it was enough money? Why do you think that that LA is going after $2 billion stadiums? And why we're going after a $1 billion stadium? Because we just want it done the right way. To have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to have something that actually makes this city better. And actually put your prime object of where brings people to your city, the Arch, kind of all in the central area. And you still have the Cardinals game, which is still going to bring you all kinds of revenue and all kinds of people from around the world. And you still have the Blues, who everybody's still gonna love, and they're still gonna show up to games, and the Blues are still gonna spend money, no matter what. Fuck me. All right, I had a little problem there, but what I'm saying is you're still gonna have a lot to go around in St. Louis, but to have something that you've never had before, and to keep this viable, you gotta have something in the city other than Cardinals baseball. All right, we're gonna end it right there. Remember, we got a text line now. Remember, check us out on YouTube. Remember, like us on Facebook, Twitter, and all that. Now start giving it up for this show. Good show today. All right, that's how we're gonna finish it. I'm Robert Bowlesby. This is Sports Blog, Greater STL Sports Network.
Daddy, can I play on you?
Yeah, I'd take all that for you.
Daddy, Daddy,
So I started watching wrestling.
What?
can I play on the piano?
Then I started watching that. You're definitely right about
I don't know how to get on the piano. I don't want to pick the next piano. I want to pick no, 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 no. Ooh, la, la. No, I have... Oh my. Oh my.
Is that what he's really saying?
Yeah, that if
Like a murder tax or something?
no, he wants some kind of murder plan before he's gonna stop the state.
Why?